The Nintendo Switch has a host of incredible third-party games, and honestly, it's hard to pick the top 25 because there are so many classic bangers, so many new school classics, so many moderate ports, so many incredible things that have came to the system. So for this list, I wanted to pick my personal top 25 best Nintendo Switch third-party games, in addition to making sure that the games that I put on this list were games that were somewhat built or played better on Switch, that weren't re-released a million different times then finally found their way on the Nintendo Switch, but games that truly feel at home on the platform and have not been released a million times on other platforms like super old classic games and being brought over. So for me, these are the top 25 best third-party games that I have played, that I love, and that I feel everyone should play on the system. Now, there's going to be a lot of controversy because obviously there's a lot of third-party games and there's a lot of Metacritic scores and different type of things that people look at when it comes to what the best are, but I truly feel that these are some of the best, if not the best, third-party games to play in a variety of genres. But you guys know me, RPGs will be represented. But before we get into any of that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get the best Nintendo Switch and RPG content on YouTube. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the first game. Coming in at number 25, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. This is a phenomenal Falcom RPG once again that has a fantastic story where Falcom just keeps on doing it. Every single time they'll put together this masterpiece that can be somewhat confusing at times, especially if you don't know the previous characters, but if you're caught up and everything is kind of gelling and flowing, the combat system takes over as the star of the show. There were so many different intricate things that you can do with this system, different systems that play a part into building up better combos and into doing really cool specials and attacks. I almost felt that it was somewhat overwhelming, but also a satisfying overwhelming as I was playing through the game and kind of understanding exactly how everything works. I think that the pacing of the game is fantastic. I've talked about this title a couple of other times in my best top RPGs list and other things, and I think that Falcom does a fantastic job with their RPGs, and this one in particular of making sure things go along at a great clip in terms of the right amount of story and the right amount of new abilities and gameplay and leveling to where it really just flows and feels great to play on the Nintendo Switch, especially on a system that you can take anywhere, level up, grind, do side missions, quests, so everything just kind of flows together, and I love this game. It's actually really good despite me not having all the time to play everything in the series. I really resonated with this one, especially with the new combat abilities and the characters and the flow of the game, so that's why it's number 25, starting it out on the list. Next up at number 24, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Atlus is back at it again with Vanillaware with their incredible, beautiful art style, fantastic, gripping, moving, emotional story, and somewhat okay gameplay for the most part. It's a really weird type of gameplay mix, but the reason why you play 13 Sentinels is not because the gameplay is the greatest thing ever when it comes to RPGs or strategy games, but it's a unique hybrid mix of like an interactive visual novel, gripping, I would say drama, kind of put in together in this dystopian mech futuristic type of world. I loved it. I love the ambience. I love the atmosphere. I love the voice acting. I love the writing. This game truly proves that video games are art when it comes down to it. Not just the art that you see and you love, but the art in creating a masterpiece, a huge dialogue tree and web of things that happen in a game. And it's one of the most thought-provoking games, can be incredibly sad, encouraging, uplifting, but at the same time determined. So for me, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim hit all of those bars, and being able to play it on the Nintendo Switch anywhere that you want for a text-heavy type of game like this, where the gameplay is very awkward at times, it really did help me actually beat the game and go through it. So 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim makes it number 24 on the list. Number 23, Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin, a phenomenal RPG that's part Pokemon, part Monster Hunter, part old school turn-based RPG, and all incredible. Phenomenal graphics, looks really sharp on the Nintendo Switch, especially the Nintendo Switch OLED. Really cool mechanics with the combat, being able to breed different monsters, inherit different types of traits and abilities, and then use those to execute in battle. Incredible turn-based battles with online multiplayer, with cooperative and competitive, and a slew of side quests to do throughout the whole game to power up your monsters, to help people out in the world, to just do a bunch of dope stuff. A lot of really interesting things like carrying eggs and kind of finding different eggs to hatch and lay and breed, and to have your best monster team. It truly feels like a real turn-based Monster Hunter game, but in a little bit of a different scale. Obviously the art style is different and everything, but what surprised me the most with this game was how awesome the story was. The story was very in-depth. Yes, the first game had that, but they really bumped up the cinematic flair and tone and look of the game, and it did really well on the Nintendo Switch, and I know why, because it's an impressive turn-based RPG that I feel they can only take further when it comes to Monster Hunter Stories 3. So Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin makes it number 23 on the list. Number 22, Persona 5 Strikers. Now, yes, this is a somewhat spin-off to main series sequel to not Royal, but the original. It's kind of weird, but it's a mainline game made in somewhat of the Warrior style, but not completely. It's an action RPG with some Warriors elements, made by Koei Tecmo, but supervised with Atlus, and they bring together the best of what Koei Tecmo does, which is awesome, large-scale action RPGs and different things with cool action-based systems, then also the storytelling, the cinematics, the flair, the style of what Persona does, and it is a match made in heaven. Persona 5 Strikers is a sleek, incredible game that has phenomenal music. Some of the best remixes that I have ever heard in a game, from the base version to the next one, is right here in Persona 5 Strikers. But how they didn't just phone it in. Like, they could have just made a Persona 5 game and then it's the same Warriors gameplay, but they actually baked in new elements. You have platforming, you have dungeon crawling, you have small scale battles like where you fight like a normal action RPG, you have large scale battles that would be like a Warriors game. They mix in a little bit of everything. They've got new characters in there, great graphics as well. So when you put together the music, the graphics, the story, every single bit of it comes together to just make a phenomenal action RPG experience that surprised me with how good it is. And that's why I had it on a list that I did not too long ago in my top 25 underrated Nintendo Switch buys. So Persona 5 Strikers now makes it into my top 25 third-party games on the Nintendo Switch. Next up at number 21, SteamWorld Dig 2. This is a oldie but a goodie because it came out the launch year of the Nintendo Switch, and still to this day, I talk about SteamWorld Dig 2. It left a lasting impression on me as a game personally. There are other big games like Stardew Valley, and there is Celeste, and there's other titles that I did on my top 25 indie games that might be above this one. But for me personally, it spoke to me with the HD Rumble. I loved the random kind of mechanics of it, the digging feature of it. It's like Minecraft, but nowhere near as annoying when it comes to certain things. Shout outs to my Minecraft fans, love you guys, but still, it just felt more interactive when it comes to what they were trying to do with this game. I think they had charming characters, they had great gameplay, it was a lot of fun, some cool bosses, not on the longest side, but still quite a bit of content to do for the price and everything. I really felt that SteamWorld Dig 2 tried to build a great world and a great way to really just explore that world and get new upgrades and just really take advantage of the Nintendo Switch system, and it still looks beautiful on the OLED if you want to check it out on there. So SteamWorld Dig 2 makes it a number 21 on the list. So we're going to do something a little bit weird for the next one. We're going to have a dual number 20 spot for two reasons here. I have Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope as the game that I'm slotting in here, but then I also have The Messenger as well. And allow me to explain. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is a third-party game. It's developed by Ubisoft. It's complete third-party. They have their original IP in there, but it uses a Mario license. And while Nintendo's not the publisher nature of the game, it still gets a little bit of that Mario or first party bump. Now, I do understand that, yes, that doesn't mean it's a first party game, but I also feel kind of like, maybe we're breaking the rules, at least unwritten rules of my own video just a little bit. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is a phenomenal sequel to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. It's got improved graphics, it's got better gameplay, it's got a bunch of new abilities, it's got a cool new arenas to fight in. Everything is pretty much better, and the game reviewed and plays just as good as ever on the Nintendo Switch, with a few issues, but for the most part really smooth during the gameplay. It's got a fun story. There's a lot of things to like about the game, so that's that. But if you feel that it uses the Mario license and it's more like a first party or whatever the case is, that's okay, because I have a dual game to talk about, and that's The Messenger. Both of these games are identical in their review score, not that it matters when it comes to my own list, but I wanted to put a true third-party game in there, and also this. So it's a little bit unique, and I get it. It's my own list. I can do what I want, but I thought it would be fun to talk about both these games because I do think that they both deserve to be on the list. So let's talk about The Messenger, because this is an indie game. It's the same development studio that made Sea of Stars that recently launched when it comes to Nintendo Switch and other platforms. It's a phenomenal third-party game, and I want to talk about this one because The Messenger does so many cool things with its gameplay. It's got a lot of cool features, and I love the shifting mechanic between the two different eras. That was very unique and fun to do and well executed, and I grew up playing games like Ninja Gaiden on the old school NES, so I absolutely love The Messenger. I loved its message, no pun intended, when it comes to the story and the gameplay elements and kind of like the upgrades and additions and the abilities. There's some really cool things about the game, and I feel that The Messenger is one of those titles that absolutely is one of the best Nintendo third-party games, along with Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. So we have a dual pick here, breaking my own rules, doing what I want, but hey, it is what it is. Next up at number 19 is Ori and the Blind Forest. This is from Moon Studios, and they did their absolute best with this Metroidvania style platformer. I've talked about this game before on my indie games, on some of the other titles, some of my other top lists. It's honestly that good. The graphics in terms of what they were able to bring over from Xbox to Nintendo Switch were incredibly well done. The music is very somber, but then at the same time can be uplifting. It has a great style and tone to it. The graphics are fantastic as well, and the gameplay, that's the best thing about this game. The gameplay is really cool. If you love Metroidvania games or Metroidvanias, this is the type of game for you. I love the upgrades. I like the tone of the story. I like everything they're able to do with the level design. That's one of the things that really stand out with Ori and the Blind Forest, is how great the level design is in tandem with the different powers that you get and the story. It all kind of ties in seamlessly, and before you know it, you're playing through the game and like 5, 6, 7 hours has went by. Like, that's how long it stints that I would play through trying to collect every single little thing and go through and find every little secret that I can in the world. It's that charming and it's so good. So Ori and the Blind Forest makes it number 19 on my list. Number 18, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Yes, I know, same franchise, back to back, but this game is even better, and honestly, this game could be higher. It takes everything that Ori and the Blind Forest does and just says, all right, yeah, we're gonna step that up to the max here. We're gonna step that up again. We're gonna do even more, and it's even better. So that's what I love about these games. I think that Ori and the Will of the Wisp, like what they've done to improve the level design and the combat, even from the first game, was tough because the first game was really good and rated really well, and somehow they made the second game even better to the point where I was like, man, maybe I should just include one of them because this is just the definitive version of this franchise. But they made the story just as impactful, if not better. The level design is just as good. The combat is better. This is a phenomenal continuation of the story that they were trying to tell with these characters, and it really shows because Ori and the Will of the Wisp is a phenomenal game, and it had to make it to number 18 on my list. Number 17, Chained Echoes, the indie darling out there, made by one person, And I have to give it up for Chain Echoes, because I think that Chain Echoes, out of any of the games on this list, if you're talking pound for pound in terms of what the development team was and what it turned out to be, Chain Echoes is a top 5 game. Now, there are some shortcomings here and there, but for the most part, it is incredible. They have a very unique battle system. I love the meter battle system, the different things that you can do to exploit your enemies. I love the dialogue in this game. This is one of the things that I talked about in my top RPGs videos, my top indie game videos. This was part of it, and just the dialogue is very well done. The environments and backgrounds, the sprite work is on point. Reminds me of the old school, but then it also reminds me of what some of the PS1 mech games tried to do. Not visually and everything, but a 16-bit version of that, like Xenogears or something. So it's a very unique game. It's an interesting game. It's a well-written game. It looks fantastic. There are so many things that Chained Echoes does that makes it one of the best third-party games, even over some of the major big Switch ports and possible ports that we've gotten. So Chained Echoes makes it to number 17 on the list. Number 16, The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. Yes, an old school game ported over, but it's so well done, and I never played it before. It was the first time that I played it here, and it was awesome. Very much like Chained Echoes, the writing is superb, and the story to me is even a bit better. These Legend of Heroes games, there's a lot of them, and it takes a lot of time to get through, but this is not a bad starting point. It takes off very simplistically in terms of the story and the characters and cross-spell and what you need to do, and then it picks up rapidly as you go on. Now, things are a little bit complicated with the battle system. It's almost a mix of like a strategy RPG and a pure turn-based RPG, but your positioning on the field is really important, and that's what I love. As you get more new abilities and different magic and different things you can do, the combat system just gets more and more and more in depth, but it never really feels too overwhelming, although there's a lot of different things to do, and that's what I loved about it. Combine the beautiful graphics, combine that with the incredible story, probably one of the best RPG stories out there, not named Xenoblade, on the Nintendo Switch. You've got yourself a winner, and that is The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero at the number 16 spot. Number 15, Hades, a game that I hate, but then I also love. Honestly, Hades could have not been on this list at all, because I do not like the rogue games. I don't like dying over and over and having to restart and everything, but Hades was the first rogue game that I played that truly made me say, okay, I'll give these games a legitimate shot going forward. It was that good with the gameplay. The Greek mythology was incredible. They had phenomenal spins on all the classic characters, and they did it in such a tasteful and awesome way. The art is really good, the graphics are so good as well, and the gameplay is fast and fluid and varied. Every weapon feels like you can absolutely do crazy amounts of damage as you upgrade and level up and get different abilities from the gods. It's one of those games that grows on you. You play it once, you're like, that's not that great. You play it twice, you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. By the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh playthrough and everything, you're absolutely addicted and playing all the way till like 1 a.m. and trying to just get that last run in to fight through and then do it all over again, over and over. But yes, I do love Hades. It is a phenomenal game. I love and hate it at the same time, so it made it right in the middle on my list at number 15. Next up at number 14, a game that I've talked about so much, and that is Sea of Stars, another indie darling, phenomenal rated game. People talk about it being a Chrono Trigger style of game, old school, Breath of Fire, Secret of Mana, some of the classics. And if you haven't noticed by now, yeah, I kind of like old school or classic style playing games made in modern ways with modern additions and different things tacked on, really addictive type of battle systems. And Sea of Stars has that. It has all the things that I grew up with back in the Super Nintendo era, all here. It has a nice action command battle system a la Super Mario RPG and more. Has phenomenal visuals that remind me of Chrono Trigger, remind me of the old school classics in a way, not exactly, but in a way. It's got great music. The music is fantastic, from the battle themes to the different areas and locations. Absolutely loved it. And it's got a ton of endings based off of your actions, just like Chrono Trigger. So some people love this game. Some people don't think it lives up to the hype. But me, I think that it's that great. I really do, because it is simplistic at times. And yes, the battle system doesn't get super crazy complicated or in-depth like some of the other old school Super Nintendo RPGs, but I still respect it for having a lot of good stuff in there for you to play around with and to keep you on your toes when it comes to what you need to do to take down enemies faster, for them not to hit you with huge attacks. So I love Sea of Stars. I think it's fantastic, so it makes it to number 14 on my list. Number 13, Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. And honestly, when you look at the top 25 games, or the games that I have from now all the way up here to 13, once we get into 10, a lot of these games can switch order based on how recently I played them. I thought this through, but one thing about Dragon Quest is that it's old school. It's like super old school, right? But it's so sharpened, honed, and polished on the Nintendo Switch. Despite me liking other games maybe a bit more in terms of what they do, Dragon Quest is so polished and so good, I had to put it up here this high, and honestly could go higher. I'm not a huge fan of Dragon Quest music, which I know people are a bummer about that, but everything else around it is so great. I love the different monsters that you can ride on. I love the different combat abilities that you have. I like the story as well. The environments are varied and well done. The combat is perfect in terms of old school flair. Everything that you'd want to see in a Japanese RPG is here in Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition, and it's done incredibly well on the Nintendo Switch when many other PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and all that we've seen didn't do as good of a job as this. So for me, Dragon Quest had to be on this list, and a game that's easily one of the best third-party titles on the platform. Next up at number 12 is an oldie but goodie, Okami HD, and another game that I struggled to put on this list, but when I played it all the way back in 2018, I haven't really talked about it too much since then. I played the original on the PlayStation 2, thought it was good, played it on Wii, and I know I didn't want to go too far back when it comes down to it, and I enjoyed those when they came out, but this is the one where I truly played and said, okay, this is Okami. I played it again. I played it back in 2018, played it again, I think when the OLED came out, and it just popped, and it really sang to me. Hideki Kamiya's vision and his games and what he wanted to do broke through, and it's an emotional experience that has fantastic boss battles, really good music, really good controls, really innovative gameplay. Even now to this day, you can pick up Okami HD and be blown away by some of the combat abilities and how you execute things. It's a bit awkward at times, but it's still incredibly fun to play through. And it's a game that people kind of forget because it's been re-released a million times on the PlayStation 2, on the Wii, on the PS3, on the 360, on the PC, on the PS4, Xbox One. Like, it's been on everything. And honestly, I didn't play all of those re-releases, but this is the one that spoke to me the most. And when I started stacking up everything that Okami does, I'm like, man, it really is one of the best Nintendo Switch games, despite it being older and on multiple platforms, which I didn't want to include too many of those, but it's just modern enough, and I feel that it feels just good enough, like it was built for a portable hybrid system like this, so I had to get it to number 12 on the list. Number 11, Nier Automata, The End of Yora Edition. We've spoke about this game, about how impossible the impossible port was, because if you look at the comparisons of this game on the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch, you're saying, whoa, wait a minute, it actually maybe looks a bit sharper in some areas. And not only that, it plays really well. The port on this was done well. There are some frame rate drops here and there, but you can forgive those for how well it runs in many of the places and how great the gameplay is. It has some of the best action RPG gameplay, but once again, PlatinumGames comes through with really unique, innovative, morphing type of gameplay. At 1 minute, you're kind of playing like a old school shooter. The next minute, you have a full-on action RPG. The next minute, you're doing something crazy and something completely different, but the story is where it really comes through. They have multiple different endings, multiple different playthroughs that you actually have to do to truly see everything, and it all just intertwines seamlessly together to where I was playing through multiple times and I was like, wow, this really is something. I really love 2B and their story and how really the combat flows. The swordplay is fantastic, having some nice gun shooting in there as well for mix-ups. You have a bunch of different upgrades and abilities that you can get as you get stronger throughout the game. game and you explore the different dystopian world. I loved so much about this game, and it's a incredible port, much better than some of the other impossible or big ports that we've gotten from PS4, Xbox One. So that's the reason why Nier Automata, the End of Year Edition, is number 11 on the list. Number 10, Monster Hunter Rise. And Monster Hunter Rise is a phenomenal experience built exclusively for the Nintendo Switch at first. Obviously, it moved over to other platforms, but when this game first launched on Switch in 2021, it broke new ground in so many different ways. The first game on the Nintendo Switch to use the new NPLN servers from Nintendo, and you can tell because those servers are awesome. They really play smooth, and the online play was fantastic on the Nintendo Switch. But it's not even just about the online play, because Monster Hunter is about that, but the single player content in this game was greatly expanded between Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. So I'm kind of combining the two to fuse it into this ultimate version of Monster Hunter that turned me into a fan. I loved the weapons in the game. The bow and arrows, some of the dual blades, different things that you can get was fantastic. The speed of the game was so much better than previous Monster Hunter games that I played, and I just felt it was a little bit too slow. Now you have a doggo, the Palamute, that can go really fast and climb up stuff. You have a wire bug that you can zip around with. So if you combine all of those different movement options with the different weapons that you can use and the online play and the DLC, Monster Hunter Rise is an easy top 10 pick for me, and easily one of the best Nintendo Switch games, and honestly could have been higher if I was more of an online type of person. But they added in so much single player content that Monster Hunter Rise is just it. It's got something for everyone. Next up at number 9 is Persona 4 Golden, another game that was kind of hard to put on the list. It released on the Vita, but it never really was re-released that much. They didn't put it on HD systems, they put it on PC, then after PC, it was on all the new platforms. So Persona 4 Golden, while it takes a long time to get through everything, and there's definitely some long-winded stuff, it is by far one of the most, if not the most polished Persona game out there, the most balanced between what they do with the combat, the characters, the story, the visuals. It really has that flair of old school, new school, innovation, all built into one. Love the social links, love the main character, love the combat options, love the personas, the fusion. Everything in this game is done incredibly well, and that's why it's one of the best RPGs of all time. And if they did like a remake like they're doing with Reload with Persona 4, ooh man, it might jump up my list even more when it comes to all-time top games. Persona 4 Golden is that. It's got so much style built into it, and you guys already know the music is incredible. The music is almost worth a top 25 spot just alone by itself, but it has everything else to really fill in all of the roles in terms of a phenomenal third-party game. So that's why I made it into the top 10 at number 9. Next up at number 8, Star Ocean, the second story R. So I've been playing a ton of Star Ocean. I actually bought both copies now at this point, and it's really good. Like, it's so good to the point to where it makes me forget the original version. Like, the original version is awesome. I played it back in the day and I knew that it was good, but they said, yeah, this is way better. And I love what they've done here. You have the multiple paths, but the quality of life options here are what's killer. The different additions to it, the feel of the gameplay, the smoothness, the different options, the friendship meters. It's like a mix of all your favorite RPGs, but then, oh yeah, Star Ocean, old school, right? Gem Drops did a great job with this, and Square Enix did a good job trusting them and giving them a budget to get all these cool little things in. They didn't just say, oh, okay, just the base game and that's what we're gonna do and just make it look better. They added a bunch of stuff as well to make the combat feel more fluid, to make the combos and the team up attacks feel more fun, to make the gameplay just more refined, and also added a lot of cool visual cues and different things to improve the story and the pacing and the flow. Star Ocean just came out and I have not put as much time in there as other games, but honestly, it's already that good, even just based off of my shorter playtime with it at this point, because I know what I remember from the original PS1 game, but this blows it away already, and I'm still got more to go. I know that there's even better things to get to at this point. So it's already a top 10 third-party game for me, one of the best remakes that I've ever played, and I really hope that Square Enix looks into their back catalog of PS1 RPGs like Xenogears and more and says, hey, we can do the same thing here with a different game. Next up at number 7 is Hollow Knight, another game built specifically in the Nintendo Switch era for that platform and that audience and the PC. But that's where people were really going to play this game. That's where they were targeting with the Nintendo Switch, and rightfully so. The game is pretty much perfect. Like, I don't say this about games a lot, but there's really nothing wrong with Hollow Knight outside of a few different design choices that you might not like, but controls wise, it's pinpoint accurate. It's 100%. Anytime something happens in the game, where you want to go, where you want to jump, the physics, the mechanics, the gameplay, the combat, everything is finely tuned and precise and honed to the edge. And whenever something does happen, it's your fault on there. You have as much control or as little control of your character on the screen to really finitely move and get into certain positions and attack bosses and do different platforming challenges. It's got that challenge, that toughness. It's got that old school flair. It's got some new school additions as well, but it's got that really dark type of atmosphere and story and tone that still, after all of these years, has ranked to me as one of the best games on the platform. So for me, because of all the content in the game, because of the controls and the gameplay and the interesting story, the more that you dig into it, Hollow Knight had to make it to number 7 on the list. Number 6, Valkyria Chronicles, the original. And I was debating Valkyria Chronicles 4, which that game's awesome, and I had it in my top 25 list, and I think I had it in my underrated games list, and that's awesome. It really could have made the list. But let's talk about what's really important here, and that's the original. Valkyria Chronicles might not have all the features and all the bells and whistles, but it has the moxie, it has the heart, it has the style that I loved so much that I felt was one of the most innovative games that I have ever played on the PlayStation 3, and then it comes out on the Switch, and legitimately this is the perfect system for it. Once again, portable play coming into clutch with a strategy RPG that allows you to pick different characters, classes, move on the board in real time, have enemies shoot at you, stop, load your weapon, boom, shoot at them back, and strategically position what type of artillery or characters you're going to use, tanks, whatever the case is, on the battlefield in a really cool anime aesthetic and water paint type of color. I've never seen anything like this. There is no other title on the Nintendo Switch or really on platforms like this, or at least no other major title. This is by far one of the best third-party games on the platform, and if you check it out, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about with the upgrading and with the levels and the maps and everything that you can do. It's really in depth and it's so charming, and the ending is just like chef's kiss. So you have to check out Valkyria Chronicles if you have not, and that's why it's number 6 on my list. Number 5, Bayonetta 1. Now, we all know that Bayonetta 2 and Bayonetta 3, yeah, Nintendo pretty much owns the rights to specifically those games for publishing as a first-party title. And although I think Nintendo did that with Bayonetta 1, still, Bayonetta 1 technically third-party game when it comes to the original release and them porting it over and everything there, so I'm giving it to that. And I'll be honest here, with Bayonetta 1, I struggled to put it on here or not, but it's still one of the best action games. Like, I still regard it as a top 5 action game of all time, even though it came out so many years ago, more than a decade ago. If you go back and play Bayonetta 1, it's not as good as 2, and it's not as good as 3 when it comes to all of the combat options, but when you play it, you realize that it's better than most of the modern action games that come out. It's better than pretty much all of them. The dodge offsetting, the different combos that you can do, the bats within, the witch time, the transforming into a panther, the weapons on your hands and on your feet that you can mix and match in different combos, all the replay value. Bayonetta 1 still has the sauce. It still has the sauce and still plays like a modern action game. If you didn't know that it came out back then, you wouldn't know that it came out back then outside of the graphics obviously not being as advanced, but the game still plays like a dream. It's smooth, it's fun, the voice acting is incredible, the story is a bit confusing but still interesting to go through. It's still very playable at this point. It is not aged or anything like that. Aged like fine wine, actually, and it probably still will keep aging just like fine wine. It will never be overtaken. It is an instant classic and one of those games that pretty much every year or two I go back and play and say, man, This game was incredible. This was a new IP. This is what it's all about. So Bayonetta 1 makes it to number 5 on my list. Number 4, Octopath Traveler 2. Every time that I think about Octopath Traveler 2, it kind of grows on me. It gets better and better the more that I think about, wait a minute, man, that storyline was really cool. Wow, they actually intertwined that. Wait a minute, hold up. That mechanic with the Brave and the default system, but also evolving it and adding latent powers for each character and all these cool different things that they did with the map and the story and just the tone of the game. It's like, this is better than most of Square Enix's big RPGs. Octopath Traveler 2 does so many cool things. The voice acting, the music, the story, the paths. It's honestly incredible. There's a few different things that are kind of like, that hold it back a bit. But overall, Octopath Traveler 2 blows away the first game. And I know some of you guys might be saying, wait a minute, hold up, the first game deserves to be on here. And yes, the first game can, but the second game is so much better in terms of what it did. I just wanted to focus on that and say, you know what, Octopath Traveler 2, this game is that good, and it leapfrogged a number of other games that I felt maybe I liked a bit more. But the more that I thought about it and the more that I went back and played it and kind of tied up some loose ends on the game, the more that I felt this game really is that good. It's worthy of a top 5 of a best Nintendo Switch list here for third-party titles, with what it does with the combat and the music and everything that I laid out here, and how they intertwined the paths a bit better. Not the best, but a bit better than what they did. They kind of fixed a number of things, and it's going to be one of those timeless games that you can play 20 years from now, and it's still going to be incredible because of the pace of the game and the flow. So that's why Octopath Traveler 2 makes it to number 4 on my list. Number 3, Triangle Strategy. And yes, we've got a top 3 sighting for Triangle Strategy, and it's something that I really thought hard about. But Triangle Strategy, to me, when it comes to what it does for strategy RPGs and the storytelling, the quality of life features, the different type of things that you can do in this game, and the story overall. It might not have stronger gameplay than some of the other strategy RPGs that are on the Nintendo Switch, but you combine that with the story and the world building, the voice acting, the quality of life, the encampment, scales of the conviction, going there, having the truth be told, going there trying to convince certain teammates to do everything. It was such a unique mechanic, but at the same time, a mechanic that felt familiar but new and different enough. The combat with the Kudo system was exquisite. It was awesome. It's short, sweet, and quick. The maps can be pretty small at times, but then also big at the same time. And when you do your team up attacks, your backstabs, your different things, it gives you more rewards for it. So it rewards you for playing good in the game. So I combined everything that I felt that was awesome about strategy RPGs, and about games just in general. And Triangle Strategy hit so many of those marks. It hit kind of all of them, and the HD 2D style looks incredible. So for me, Triangle Strategy was an easy number 3 as a best Nintendo Switch third-party game. Next up at number 2 is Shin Megami Tensei 5, a game that I absolutely once again love and I hate. I hate how much I got absolutely mollywopped, bodied, smacked. The bosses in this game, they are so vicious on the hard difficulty. They are so relentless exploiting weaknesses, and this game holds no bars when it comes down to it. Yeah, there's no auto saving. There's nothing like that. And if you die and forget to save, well, you're going all the way back. If somebody completely claps you while you're playing with the press turn system, to where not only can you do attacks like magic that get you an extra turn and continue to let you just really have momentum in the battles, the enemies do as well as a turn-based RPG. So they all have those advantages, and trust me, they will do it. So the complete sadistic nature of this game and the combat made me like it more. The fusion abilities, the different things that you can do to fuse and get different team members, it almost made it feel like you had an endless wave of potentially getting stronger. You have the Nahobino, who's just this super cool looking character that has a beam hand blade sword thingy with a really cool outfit and long hair. But then you have all these different enemies that you can fight and then team up with, and then fuse and then power them up to create just like the ultimate demon squad kicking butt. So for me, I had to put this game this high on the list. The story isn't as strong as some of the other RPGs on here, but the gameplay, and if you do more of the story, if you actually explore and do the side quests and collect everything, it reveals even more than what people thought. No, it's not as good as the previous ones like SMT4 that's not on the Nintendo Switch, that needs a remake, but to me, when I really saw that true ending and I saw everything and I did everything in the game, put 130 hours plus or however much time I put into it, I truly appreciated what they were trying to tell with more of a minimalist story, but then also adding in some big revelations with certain characters if you go the extra mile to do their side quests and everything. So love that about the game, love the combat, love the graphics, love the music. Little bit sketchy in some areas with the frame rate, but in battles everything is smooth. It's a turn-based RPG, so absolutely love the magic as well too. Some of the Nahobino magic is so cool, and some of the different bosses you fight, it's just an incredible experience that to me really just shines about old school gaming with some new school flair and put into the classic Atlus awesomeness. Next up at number 1, you guys know Persona 5 Royal, pretty much the perfect Japanese turn-based RPG on the Nintendo Switch with an exquisite port from the fantastic music that's in the game, from all the added content that's in the game with the new semester and the new female lead character. There's so many good things that this game does. The demon fusion is incredible, the different story and set pieces, some of the downtime, the school stuff. I'm not as big of a fan of it, but now that I can play it anywhere that I want, it makes it 10 times more bearable, and I'm actually thinking to myself, okay, this is pretty good, because being stuck to a TV, sitting there and talking and social links and dating and doing all the different things that you need to do in order to get the best endings and in order to do good in this game, it can be kind of boring just sitting in front of a TV. But when you can do that anywhere, it really brought up a new appreciation for this game, because it's so much more fun to do it that way, in my opinion. That's why when I talk about the best Nintendo Switch third-party games, a lot of these games to me feel even better to play and go through, because I can play in my type of way on this platform. It made me think differently about how the games play and what's suited for when it comes to the hardware. Persona 5 Royal is essentially the perfect game for the Nintendo Switch in terms of how Mementos works, how the social links work, how the combat is, and everything. So it really just shot all the way up. I mean, it was already pretty much going to be number 1, 2, or 3, but I think I have to put it at number 1 based on everything that it does. And the story is just incredible. One of the best Japanese RPG stories, one of the best stories period in any type of game. Great level design, great locations that you go into, and very unique structure. Not my favorite structure, but still incredibly unique structure that fits the style and tone of the game. So I really loved leveling up, I loved grinding, I loved getting new different personas, I loved doing the side quests. There were so many things that make Persona 5 Royal the ultimate Nintendo Switch game, one of the best RPGs of all time, making it to number 1 on my top 25 best Nintendo Switch third-party games. What are your top 25 best Nintendo Switch third-party games? What do you think I got right? What do you think was off? What do you like? And what top 25 lists would you like to see in the future? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other top 25 best lists on the channel, like my top 25 best first-party Nintendo Switch games and more. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.